Right, I did a little video a couple of days ago, or maybe a week ago, largely as a joke, about using washing lines to dry your laundry, your washing, or whatever, in the garden as a very effective way of saving energy, which it is. It's true. It's makes sense to dry your washing outside in the sunshine. Anyway, during the video, I happened to mention climate change, doing your bit, as it were, to protect the environment. Anyway, I'm not even going to say whether I'm a supporter or I disagree with that concept. What I noticed, what stood out, was that over my video, my very short little bit of fun, was an insert that Google had put in, YouTube, and the Fault Police, from courtesy of the United Nations, explaining what climate change was, as a fact. Now, I wasn't denigrating the idea or whatever. I don't believe one should go out of your way to pollute the environment, for instance, or anything like that. I'm not anti-electric car. I'm not. I'm old enough to have grown up in London during the great fogs that were caused mostly because of the amount of coal we were producing. And I believe the Chinese have had similar experiences. But believe you me, if you'd actually experienced one of those fogs, you would really feel you were in a different world completely. Coal was obviously a problem, a big problem, and a great polluter. It wasn't the only one, but one of many. Anything we do effectively pollutes. And the upshot of what I'm trying to say is although I'm not big on pollution, not at all, quite the reverse, I really do struggle with this depth of censorship and mind control that seems to be the de rigueur amongst the social media platforms, and particularly on the part of certain political persuasions. One needn't mention the Greens. Obviously, they are de facto the voice of climate change, but the so-called left, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in this concept of the left. I think it's nonsense. Just as the right is nonsense. But I just want to put some simple salient facts out there for people to maybe chew over, of the people that actually see this vid, which won't be very many, if any, apart from me. And they are to do with this world that we live in, and what kind of a place it is. And I'm not really going to talk about what we do. I'm just going to talk about the planet as such. And these figures that I'm going to quote are not controversial. They're based on something called relativity and our way of measuring things over time and so forth. So they don't really mean a lot. They're just things that humans make up as a way of understanding the world around us. They're numbers, and they're big numbers. So I'm not trying to befuddle you with big numbers. If you have trouble with, say, the concept of a trillion or a billion, just knock all the noughts off and just think of it as 14 or 20 or whatever. That's what we were taught to do in science classes at school back in the 60s. And it really does work. Just knock the noughts off, and then you're away. You don't really have to think in terms of trillions. A trillion is just 12 noughts, and a billion is 9, and a million is 6. Anyway, So I'm going to talk about the planet Earth to start off with. The common wisdom is that the Earth goes around the sun, and it does this at a fairly high speed, as you can imagine. It has to cover a lot of ground. We're 93 million miles away from the sun. So if you use 2 pi to calculate the circumference roughly, bearing in mind the sun is nearly 1 million miles across, and it wobbles about 400,000 miles. So it's never going to be exact. And to get that into perspective, the Earth is about 24,000 miles across. So the sun is wobbling 400,000 miles on its centre. That's pretty weird to start off with, bearing in mind that it's supposedly a gigantic atomic bomb. Anyway, so the circumference that the Earth is supposed to cover during that period, according to pi and according to Google, I got all the numbers from Google, I checked them, and I did them on the calculator as well, it's 586 million miles, 0.6 something or other miles that we cover in a year to go around the sun, our rotation. But we don't, in fact, go around the sun, and we've never gone around the sun. And this is not controversial. This is a fact. It's nothing new in science. The Earth progresses along with the rest of the solar system through the galaxy at about 490,000 miles per hour. It covers in a year 4,292,400 whatever thousand miles. That's a colossal distance, but not very far in terms of, like, the solar system is not as, it's basically going out past the Kuiper belt towards the Oort cloud, maybe something like that, or out towards Pluto, past Pluto. Saturn, I think Saturn's about 800 million, nearly 1 billion miles away. See, I get confused. You have to write them all down. The big figures. So if you calculate the speed we're travelling through the cosmos, through the galaxy spirals, and we're going along with it, we're travelling along with it. The ratio of our forward motion to our so-called circular motion comes out, if you divide 586 million into 4,292,000, it comes out roughly 7.317 to 1. That's how far we travel forward. So, in fact, it's a very elongated spiral that we are going on, and the ratio is 7.317 to 1. That is, and if you've got a slinky string and strung it out, you'd be breaking it, they do break eventually, and that would be at its tolerance. Neptune travels nearly a trillion miles to do one in relation to its so-called circumference, which it never does. I think it's 280 something years or something it takes. During that time, when we've done our one spiral forward, Neptune has hardly moved, in terms of its going around the sun or its spiralling. So, these are big numbers, and they're difficult to sort of conceptualise. I'm not even pretending that I can juggle them all up that easily, and obviously I've thought about it, and there are lots of videos on YouTube of people demonstrating this practically, with lovely graphics and all the rest of it. So just look it up. It's really interesting. They make very lovely patterns, and it's also mind-boggling and beautiful to look at. Not only are we travelling at these colossal speeds in a spiral, along with all the other planets, in this strange organism we call the solar system, which barrels through the galaxy, which is on the Arcturus arm and it's spiralling around the Arcturus arm, and the Arcturus arm is spiralling around the galaxy. The whole galaxy is moving towards what we call the Great Attractor. And the figure I've got here is in billions a year. Well, I'll give you it in miles per second. It's 242.335 miles per second. And that's 7,642,276. 7 billion, I do beg your pardon, 7,642,276,560 miles a year. Now, I do apologise for the people that work in kilometres. To do the two together for me would be too much. You have to understand that I'm aging fast. I'm not a young man anymore, and I would literally be befuddled by numbers, and it would render the whole. And we're already over 10 minutes. I meant to do this as a 5-minute or a 3-minute video, and you can see how difficult it is. So the simple upshot about what I'm saying is, what on earth people think about this is safe on a planetary scale. We're travelling through this universe, this cosmos, where all kinds of monsters lurk and all different sorts of radiations. We pass through different radiation belts all the time. I mean, we could pass through a quasar. We wouldn't know much about it because we wouldn't be there to talk about it. Or maybe we would, our spirits would, our souls would. We'd go, wow, far out. That was a quasar. Now I know what that's like. Let's see what happens next time, you know. But I'm addressing this to the Greens. You know, they pretend to know everything, and really they're quite. Well, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to address that in a separate video. I'm going to talk about the history of the Green movement and the so-called left and whatever. And bearing in mind, when I was younger, when I thought I knew what I was talking about, I used to consider myself very left. You know, actually it was because it was trendy, and I thought the girls would like me because of it. It didn't really work. Although I never really had a lot of trouble attracting the kind of women I wanted, but that's another story. The whole politics thing for me was basically a backdrop to what I wanted out of life. And then I grew up. And the world hit me like an express train. But this world, we don't understand it. We don't know what it is. We don't know what the sun is. We really don't know enough to make the kind of pronouncements the Greens do, and certainly Google does, to put banners above my silly little video, which was about 3 minutes long, about washing lines, courtesy of the United Nations. Now, if I said COVID, they'd probably put another, the algorithm would probably put another banner up saying, this is whatever, you know. I'm going to talk about what I feel about that in another video. I'll link this one on Facebook. I think I'll cut it off now because I could say an awful lot more on this subject, but it's already way too long, far longer than I intended. So here we go. Thanks for listening. If you've taken the trouble to listen. Bye bye.